Okay, we'll start. Rashi brings down that Parshas Vayigash is a Parshas Stume. What it means to say is Stume, every Sedra ends by a Parsha, either a Samach or a Pei. And the Sedras that end over there, it's really in the Torah is only one Samach or one Pei, whatever it is. We put 3 at the end of the Sedra just so you know it's a Sedra, not a Parsha, plain Parsha. But it's a Parsha. Okay, and this one is actually in the middle of the Parsha, the Sedra stops. And it continues until the Pei, which is Namches. What was the Pei? A little further down, about another 4 psukim. Yeah. And he says why? Because Nismo name Shel Yisrael with the Misa of Yaakov Avinu. The question that arises is simply the Sedra starts Vayichi Yaakov. Yaakov lived. So if you wanted to tell me about Yaakov's death, so you should have gone L'chol HaPochos, the next pasuk, and you could have gone and would at least tell you how many years Yaakov lived, so we know he died. So at least there and tell me, okay, he died. You want to use the day by Yomas on him, so therefore it's a dislation. But what it had to be somehow that he's dead, and instead it ends off with he's alive. So it's a little bit schwer to say that the because of his death, and besides the Aveda didn't start until Levi died, which is many years later. So why is it saying here that this is what he called Parshas Tumah? That he's right, that this is what caused the Golus, and this is what really made the problems, that I agree with him. But I'm saying that it said because Yaakov died, maybe if Yaakov was alive, his hashpoya would have prevented assimilation to a certain degree. That could be. That's possible, what he means. So the real assimilation started really after he died, even though all the other brothers were alive. But I think what it tells you here is that the assimilation started upon the success of the Yidden in Mitzrayim. Yosef wanted to change the normal attitude that Jews have in Golus, or should have in Golus. Jews in Golus should always be, like you said before, Heim Levadam, Hu Levadei, Vehem Levadam. Why? Ki She'avas Mitzrayim Lechol Im Ivrim. It was the Egyptians didn't eat with Jews. They considered Jews low level. Considered them barbarians, the fact that they eat meat and so on. So they didn't eat with us. Again, he told his brothers to tell Paro that they roye boka, roye tzoin, ki soyavas Mitzrayim kol roye tzoin. Mitzrayim doesn't like people who are shepherds. So basically, I let them keep their feeling of superiority, and therefore they didn't bother us too much. We didn't assimilate with them because they didn't want to have any shekels with us. Not that we didn't want to have a shekels with them, they didn't want to have shekels to us. And we kept that on purpose, that we shouldn't assimilate. That was what he did. And when he moved them from one end of Mitzrayim to the other end, when he bought all of Mitzrayim for Parei, what he wanted to do with that, he wanted to make it that the Jew shouldn't be grinner, it says. Years ago when I was a kid, someone living in America for a month would say about a guy living a week that he's a grinner. Yeah, sometimes a year would say to the month guy is a grinner. Everybody's a grinner. You don't really belong, you just came in and you're green yet. Okay. He wanted to avoid that. And he did. But one other country did that, America. There's nobody in America that's not from an immigrant except the original Indians. And nobody seems to give them too much credit. So the only thing that we have here is everybody's a land of immigrants, so we're all equal. If we're all equal, then the Jew takes over. Tremendous influence that the Jew has in America. And this is what they had in Mitzrayim too. And because of that, assimilation is rampant. Because all of a sudden, you're dealing with them constantly, and all of a sudden, assimilation is rampant. And that is the problem that existed in Golos. And the bigger problem was because it started when Yaakov and the Shvatim are still alive. Maybe Yaakov himself wouldn't have gone to the point of actual assimilation, but the seeds would have been sown already. We would have what we would call different levels of orthodoxy. We would have already conservative reform to a certain extent. But if Yaakov was alive, it wouldn't happen maybe. But the Shvatim already would happen, just like we had in America. Everybody was religious when they came over. It didn't take long for them to become religious. Why? Because they wanted to participate, they wanted to become part of the country, they wanted to become advanced monetarily and prestigiously. And all of these things made you assimilate. And that's what happened. And that's what happened in Mitzrayim too. Okay. And you see that this was really a dispute, and I think we discussed it last week, between Pari and Yosef. Yosef wanted them to settle in Eretz Goshen. And fine, and Pari let it go. But he also told him, I want you to give him the land, B'meitav Eretz Mitzrayim. And what is that? It's Ramses. I mean, one would say that Goshen was such a beautiful land, it's perfect, that's what we're talking about. How come it wasn't full? How come the Mitzrayim didn't live there? They're waiting just for us. All of us, it was a land far away from downtown, wherever you had to be, and therefore people didn't live there. It was a beautiful bedroom community, but it had nothing to do with the main part of the city, the metropolis. And that's where Ramses is, and he gave him a Meitav Haaretz. And the Parshas off before the Shvi, when it starts off to tell you what happened in Mitzrayim with the Egyptians in Parshas Vayichi, it says that he actually had to give him this land. So in other words, the Jew had 2 pieces of land. He was in Goshen, and he also had land in Mitzrayim. And when land in Mitzrayim was made specifically by Pari, so they should assimilate. Yosef wanted them not to assimilate, and Pari wanted them to assimilate. Okay, so that's the setting on what's going on. And in a way, this could be one of the reasons he didn't want to be buried in Mitzrayim. I don't know, that we have to think about. It's why, if what has one thing to do with the other, since that's the first thing he thought about now being buried in Mitzrayim, is because besides the inyan of the Makis, the Kinim and stuff like that, but besides that, it reflects badly on him and what he called it, in the land of great assimilation, he should be buried there. That this is our land. It's not our land. So go back to Canaan, that's where we came from. Okay, anyway, he's sick. What do you call it? Yosef takes his 2 children, Menashe and Ephraim, and he comes to Yaakov Avinu, and Yaakov Avinu wants him to swear that he's going to bury him there, and he tells him, Zach, that there's 2 children that were born to you until I came, Ephraim and Menashe are going to be like Reuven and Shimon. Now, it's a little bit schwer here. When does it say that he put Ephraim before Menashe? When he gave the bracha, Simcha Lekim Ki Ephraim Menashe. Yosem is Ephraim Lefnei Menashe. Right? But mashma until then, Menashe was the Bechor, and we always refer to him as the Bechor. And yet here, which is before that time, Yaakov says Ephraim and Menashe. So it was always Ephraim and Menashe as far as Yaakov was concerned. Could be for a very simple reason, not a big deal, was simply when you have, let's say, you start enumerating your children, which one would you name first? Generally, the one I have more shaykhs with. So even though it's my 4th kid, but he is my business partner, so he's the one I mentioned first, because so Ephraim was the one that learned Torah with him, and Asher was the one that was taking care of the business in the palace. But he didn't have that much shaykhs with him, so when he spoke, it was better the kid, my grandchildren, oh, Ephraim, oh, yeah, and Menashe. Right, that would be the way it is there, and so therefore Ephraim and Menashe grew up Shimon yearly. The kasha is, though, why only the ones that were born already, those are the ones that are going to be like the Shvatim. Anyone born after, even though there never was any, will be on their name. In other words, they don't count as mine. Why did these count as mine? When I wasn't here, they count as mine. And when I was here, they don't count as mine. The first ones that count as mine, because the way you kept, which we said separately, and Hulevada, Behen Levada, in other words, that they ate separately, that was a chinuch he got from Yaakov Avinu. And when he came to Mitzrayim, that was the thing, and he raised his kids differently, away from everybody. They didn't assimilate. I knew a few mishpachas, but one specifically, I'm not mentioning the names, where all the children knew they were the rabbi's children, and they acted differently because they were the rabbi's children. They lived out of town. There was nothing wrong with living out of town. They actually were able to grow up. The trouble is that you needed a yeshiva to send the kid also. But so they had a day school. But the idea is that he kept them separate. They played among themselves and so on, and therefore they didn't assimilate with the rest of the crowd. And it was a fine, and the kids turned out very well. So why is it there? Because that they had that thing. Afterwards, the reason that we didn't take so much care, or automatically it's possible we can't take so much care, is because everybody's religious. And everybody's religious, even though there's different levels of religious, we have to do one with the other. And what are you going to tell your kids? You can't eat in that house, you can't eat in this house, and so on. That's how a good way to make a lot of enemies. And the truth is, that's what happens. So either you can go in, I don't eat in anybody's house, or I eat in everybody's house, or however it's going to be. And that's a problem that we have an association. But automatically we're going to have friends we go to the same yeshiva together, we go to the same class together, but you and I are two different people. And you have one value and I have a different value. And that we get together, there's where the real assimilation comes in. They lower their own level first before they go out and assimilate with the goyim. But first they have to assimilate with themselves. Now, with the same levels are not held together. And each family will have different levels of fumkeit from the kids. Why it's so, that I can't answer you. But obviously the Gemara expected it, because the Gemara says, you have to have kids all your life, as much as you can. He says, why? Because the one in the when you're young is not the same as the one when you're old. And you don't know which one is going to be better. And maybe they'll both be good. Now, what kind of a statement is that? Because I raised them differently. When I had strength and I was a young guy and everything else, I played ball with them. I took them on hikes. I was very buddy with my son. Afterwards, when I'm an old man, the only way I have my relation with my son, I keep chazering with him, I learn with him, and he's not too happy about that maybe and stuff like that. And therefore you have a different raising of the kid. And therefore your relationship is different to them, and maybe they'll both be good. And that's very possible. But it's definitely a good question that some may not make it because of that. But that has nothing to do with you. That you have to keep having the children anyway. Yeah, it says, so he says to Yosef, bring me these kids and I'll give them a bracha. And he loses the Ruach HaKodesh. So yes, who are these guys? Right? Who are they? What do you mean, who are they? You've been learning with Ephraim for a long time. What do you mean, who are they? So obviously you lost the Ruach HaKodesh. That was the point. And He wants to know what's wrong with them that he lost the Ruach HaKodesh. Rashi says what they lost was that the Reuven and Achav come from Ephraim, Yehu comes from Menashe, and therefore he lost the Ruach HaKodesh. Now, I don't know why Rashi writes that. I guess like Yehu's, they were the kings of, all the kings of Yisrael were not good, so therefore he puts him. But Yehu himself, the Machlekes Rishonim that actually say he was a very good guy. So whatever it is, but Ephraim Menashe, but Ephraim we definitely know Shaili. Reuven ben Avot, Chayte Machtes Arabim, Achav he brought in the Baal, and the Klal Yisrael. These two guys definitely were bad, and therefore it was enough to take away the Shechina because he couldn't give him the bracha, so maybe he couldn't give Ephraim, Menashe either the bracha. But whatever it is, that's what happened. So what did Joseph do? So he brings him Ishtar Ksubin. Chayri, he should bring, when he wanted to prove that he married her, he should have brought Shtar Kedushin. Now you'll ask him, what is the Shtar Kedushin? You have no Edom, you have no, what do you call, how is he Mekadosh? So you can say B'Ksav Yodi. There's no Edis, you're right. But as far as an obligation is enough by your signing it, that makes the obligation, so maybe for marriage too. But in the Shtar Kiddushin, it doesn't say who the people are. It just says, Harayat Mikudeshes li b'shtar zu. And it says those words in the shtar. And that's enough. That's called the king Kiddushin. And you have to have two Eidim to see this transaction. But as far as the names of the people, it doesn't say it all in there. And the same thing goes when you make Hariyat Miteshli B'Tabazu. Doesn't say, I, Yankel Berel, marry you, Shana Rivke, with this ring. No, you don't say that. You just say, Hariyat Miteshli, whoever you are, I'm a Kaddish, and the two Edom will say that guy the hits, and that's it. And do you have a record of it? Absolutely not. Except for the government, but like this, there's no record. Right? So what's the record? The record is the Shaksuba, where there's it's already a financial statement, a actual shtar of chiv money. So there you have to identify the people who you owe money, who is the one that owes the money, and to who does he owe the money. So he looked on the shtar Ksubah, and he saw Osnas's name. Now I guess it was a strange name, there's only one Osnas in the world, which happens to be his granddaughter, according to the Gemara. He is the daughter of Shechem, of Dinah from Shechem. And he takes her, he leaves her on the road someplace with a kameya, and I must probably put money there too for anyone to wants to raise her. I'm sure no one's taking in a kid into the house for no reason at all. So I'm starting left with money. I can't a kameya, and this is the kid, and it's a good kid, but she's not going to be brought up in our house. We don't want her. What was wrong with her? She was a chivi. We spoke about this, I think, maybe once before in Yishlach. What was wrong with the chivi? That Avram Avinu didn't want the chivi. Yitzchak Avinu didn't want the chivi. Esav married a chivi, but he pretended she was a chiti. He even changed the name from Alivam Bas Anod to Yehudis Bas Be'eri to show that she's kaifa b'aved zorah. That's what the word Yehuda means. Yehudis doesn't mean I'm from the Shevet Yehuda. It means that I am a kaifa b'aved zorah. And because they had an issue, and we'll see this from the other historical facts, that they must have been actors, or the ability to act. They had that ability. And what he called, so this he tried to get her to act as a God-fearing girl, but she was Avodah Zarah, so she didn't do a good job. Shechem, when Hamor and Shechem, when they addressed the Shiftei Koh, they told him about that, how they would be first in any union between them and Shechem. when he spoke to the Anshe Shem, he told them how they will be first with any union with the Jews. So in other words, he was able to put on and sell the Brooklyn Bridge to somebody. He was a politician. I don't have to live up to my promises, but I can promise you and you're going to believe me. That's a dream. That's an actor. And when you come in, what do you call it, in Yeshua, the cities that made peace with Klal Yisrael, they claimed they came from a far distance and nothing, the Gevonim and so on, they're all Chivi. So you see that there's a carrier that had ability to fool people. And that Avram Avinu and Yitzchak did not want in Klal Yisrael. It's not hard enough to know who you are when you know who you are. But if I can play different roles and be somebody else, I surely won't know who I am. So therefore, why would I want him in Klal Yisrael, such a midah? So he kept them out. And Timnah who was a Chivi who wanted to become a Geyuris in Avram's time and Yitzchak's time, became a Pelegish of Eliphaz, who was the son of Esav, when her niece is the wife of Esav. What a bizoyan that must be, and she's a princess. Afal Pikein, she says, was told that how much they wanted to be, associated with the Yidden, but obviously that's a big thing that some want to be so associated with the Yidden, but they kept her out. And whether that's the reason Amalek is her kid or not, I can't answer you. But Lamaisa, a child was Amalek, and but that's how she came in. The Esav, and now he came into Klal Yisrael to see. Now, why would we? Bensham made sure he comes into Klal Yisrael, because Potiphar finds her, Pari marries her off to Yosef, if Menashe come from her. So, what is it so important about her? Because when you go to Golus, there has to be some kind of a keach of being able to get along with the people in charge of the country. Even though they have different ideals than you, they have different values than you do, but you have to associate with them. So therefore, that's a way. That's called an act. I'm not a faker, but I'm an actor. I'm pretending all this stuff when I go to the dinner with you, whatever it is, the buddies and stuff like that. Even though your values are completely different than my values, but we have to keep up some kind of semblance of getting along, and that is a golus need, and it's a need for golus, and that's why it came into Klal Yisrael. But it has also its bad effects. So you can have the Gadol Hador, who is Reuven ben Avot, and becoming a choite umachtes Arabim. How could that be? I mean, it's completely. Or Achav, which is an Achla Shemayim and an Avla Avodah Zarah. That's what he's saying, Achav. He's a brother and a father. Contradictory, but an actor can do it. Someone has that ability to act. And that was, but once he realized it's from Osnas, so then they're his problems now. They're Jews. We have to deal with the situation now, and they're ours. And ours like Nibid Bracha. And that's what he did. Anyway, you have a machlekes here between Yosef and Yaakov. Yosef feels his children are, like we said before, Menashe and Ephraim. Who's the one that he needs to help him out to run the government is Menashe. He's in the palace. He is a guy who went either a minister or he's this right-armed man, right-hand arm, whatever it is there. And he's the one that's important, and therefore in Golus we do need the court Jew, and that's a very important thing. And he is the court Jew. So he's first. And Yaakov is telling him, no matter where we are, And no matter how we are, it's always going to be the Torah. People are going to look at us as the people of the book. They're not going to look at us as financiers or media people, even though we control the media. We have tremendous. Banking was definitely a Jewish business originally. Commercialism, what do you call it? The whole way of retailing shops. All of these things were all Jewish businesses that Jews invented, and so they were taken out. But Afal Pi Kain, that's not the important thing. How they remember us? They remember us as the people of the book. That we have something that's different than anybody else, as far as that goes. And therefore, Ephraim is always before Menashe. Now, when he says, this is the way you should bless Yidden, Simcha L'kim K'Ephraim V'Menashe. So it seems a little contradictory. It seems like you say, you got to be like number one, but also like number two. It doesn't make any sense. First of all, why would I go for Ephraim Menashe? Go for Moshe Rabbeinu, go for Avraham Avinu, go for the one the top. I mean, why go for Ephraim Menashe? They're good, they're big people, but they still don't match those people. So I think it's because these are the only two that in our history, or at least from the Shvatim, that were brought up totally in Golus and still lived up to their potential. The Shiftei Kodah lived up to their potential, brought up in Eretz Yisrael. So they were born in Padan Aram, but they were raised in Eretz Yisrael. And the same thing applies maybe to the others. They were, once Avraham Avinu got there, Yitzchak never left Eretz Yisrael, Yaakov only when he was gone, but most of his time was in Eretz Yisrael. So they had a different influence on themselves than Ephraim and Menashe. So therefore, we're asking, or we're begging, or we're praying, give a blessing to our children that they should grow up in Golus, that we are, that they should be Ephraim and Menashe. Now, we always reach their potential no matter where they are. That's one way to look at Pshat. Another way you can look at it maybe that Tak Ephraim is bigger than Menashe. What do you mean Ephraim is bigger than Menashe? We're not talking about Ephraim and Menashe themselves. They both reach their potential, so we can't say one is bigger. Just Moshe is and Aaron, the Torah says Aaron and Moshe once, because to show you, as long as you reach your potential, you're equal to everybody else, because the potential is God-given, and it's not something that you have. It's God-given. It's what you do with it. If you reach it, so then you accomplished everything that God can want from you. And that's the thing. So the Ephraim and Menashe, they both, no matter what. But Ephraim had Yeshua come from him, and Menashe got Gideon came from him. So very nice, but it's not the same week, and therefore the question of switching his hands and so on. He needed more spirituality in the bracha to Ephraim than he needed to Menashe. Does it mean that Ephraim is always ahead of Menashe? Like you'll see by the Machnes in Bamidbar, they call it Machne Ephraim, right? And in that was Menashe, Ephraim, Menashe, Binyamin. That's a Machne Ephraim, right? In the second counting in Parshas Pinchos, it says Eila b'nei Yosef, or say b'nei Yosef, le Menashe is counted first. It didn't change the about the Machnes, it doesn't mention, but Menashe is counted first, listed first. When it came to this, mentioned in the Siyum, in Parshas Masei, Menashe is found coming first. So in other words, and then see with the numbers, there was 58,000 of Menashe and only 30-something thousand of Ephraim. While the first counting, Ephraim was more than the other two. So you see that the weaker, the smaller, can become bigger because they will work to reach their potential. And if you do, then you're going to be bigger than the people who don't make it. And that was one lesson. So it's not that the Ephraim is bigger than Menashe, but he needed for the battles that Yeshua had to fight, as opposed to Gideon, he needed more spirituality than Gideon, because he's bringing the foundation of Klal Yisrael and Eretz Yisrael, and that has to be with Kedusha and everything else. So therefore, he's a greater person. He needs greater bracha to be successful. Okay. No, there's something I wanted to say, but I don't remember what. Okay. Going to the brachas, V'yankim Avinu, to the children. So, the first three, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi, seem to have not a klola necessary, but like a Mussar speech, and it was a loss. Reuven was supposed to be the Bechor and have the Kuna and the Malchus was taken away from him, and even what we call the definition of Bechor. The name Bechor will never be taken from him, because he was truly the Bechor of Yaakov Avinu. His Reisha Sinai was the first Zara that he ever was Vayichi, and that's Reuven. So therefore he will always be Bechor Yaakov or Bechor Yisrael. But the privileges of it he lost. And therefore, so he told him, why? Because you're Parshas Kamayim. You jumped the gun. And we see that Reuven, because they took this very seriously, tried to do tshuva through all the times. The Rambam goes, when you go in trying to go on a midah, you go from one extreme to the other extreme in order to get back to the middle. So how did he do that? So first he started to not offer an opinion. So you find when God and Reuven God approached Moshe Rabbeinu about the land in Iva Yarden. So it says that Bnei Reuven and Bnei God approached them, because the older one comes first. But when they spoke, Bnei God and Bnei Reuven spoke. Reuven did not speak. God spoke. In other words, Reuven went along, but they didn't make a start on it. It got to such a degree that in the time of Devorah, she calls them chike kelev, they can't make a decision. Because they're always doubtful, should we do it, shouldn't we do it? And therefore nothing happens, and they always shev al tas, and they don't do it. So they went to the extreme, finally. And I assume later on, they came back to the middle. But they took it very serious, what he said. And then Shimon ben Levi says, "Oh, Rapam." He didn't say, "I cursed Shimon ben Levi, I cursed the anger." No, what's pshat in that? When you mean cursing the anger, you mean you're cursing them. So first of all, before I explain that in a minute, Rabbi Yankiv said, it says each one got a bracha. So some say it means it was a total bracha, and each one got a part of that. But he said, no. If someone tells you what's wrong with you, and you can fix it, that's the biggest favor ever did to you. He gave you a bracha by telling you that point. So when he told that Reuven that it was a Parshas Kamayim, and he told Shimon and Levi that they have anger, that he did a tremendous favor for them, because now they work on that, not to have it anymore. But let's understand something that's very funny. Who are the mechanchen of Klal Yisrael? Shimon and Levi. Right? Shimon is the Seifrim and the Melamdi Tanaikis. And Levi is Tumecha v'Rechel Ish Chasidecha. That the Ike Mechanech is the Kohen Gadol, who has to make up all things there. So it's a schwer Sache to understand this. Like by Yeshua ben Gamla, they actually changed put in a whole what do you call it, elementary school system in the Klal Yisrael. I mean, that's the Kohen Gadol's job. You're the mechanech of Klal Yisrael. So how could it be that they took anger? She says, to show emotion, that it bothers you, that you care, that's very important for a Rebbe to do. It has to be that the child has to see that the Rebbe cares about this thing, and therefore it's no good, or it is good, and therefore the child will go for it, whatever it is. On the other hand, who would be B'nai Torah supposedly? Yisachar. Yet you don't find that Yisachar was given this job. They were Dayanim, what do you call it? Why? Because they were a little colder-blooded than this was. They didn't have that emotion. They didn't have that thing to show it's wrong. And that's what they did. They took something that they felt was very wrong and they made a big machoy on it. But unfortunately, it came out as anger. That's what Yaakov Avinu says over Apam. I'm cursing their anger. I don't want anger. I want them the emotion I want, but not anger. It doesn't have to come out as anger. And that was what over Apam means. Yeah. Yehuda. What you became the king. You became king because people know how to handle things. What it means to tell us is that the few stories we know about Yehuda, but he's standing up for Binyamin, or guaranteeing Binyamin, or convincing the brothers not to kill Yosef, but to sell him. All of these things were done because he heard Reuven say that he's not Chayiv Misa, that you shouldn't kill him. Didn't know about not Chayiv Misa, but you shouldn't kill him. And that's what he did. He made sure that they didn't kill him. Now, a king doesn't have to be the smartest person in Klal Yisrael. That he doesn't have to be. But he has to be a person who can settle around him Chachomim, people who are the best, just like a president of the United States. What does he do? He makes secretaries of different things, and each one is an expert in that field, supposedly, and he's supposed to use his thing, and then he comes to the president to present his case, and there'll be others who disagree with him, and it's the president to make the decision who he's going to listen to. But it's the opinions, he invites opinions to come to him. You have a little bit different even, maybe less a point. If you look in Sechtes Brachos, in Nafhei, I think it is, they talk about how the David HaMelech used to run the government. The people, he brings who they came to, the Rish Bezdin, the Dainan, the Satzvah, all they came to him and he said, Am Chatzichem Parnasa. They need money. They need the country. He says to them, do business. So they said, the bar doesn't get filled from Chulya. If you dig a hole and you want to fill up the hole with the same earth that you dug out of it, you're not going to fill it up. It's not going to fill. So therefore, you're not going to satisfy everybody with the money, with doing business. Now, what do you mean by that? Right? I'll show you. Baruch Hashem, many of us can afford a cleaning lady, right? And the cleaning lady works for us. She has aspirations. We have on a house. I have that and have money in the bank. But whatever I have, I want to have. But if I want my cleaning lady also to have those aspirations, right? That she also wants a cleaning lady, and she also wants a house, and she also wants all these things. So she's going to be charging me, instead of $15 an hour, she charge me $50 an hour. Now, for me to be able to afford my cleaning lady now, I'm going to have charge $100 an hour for whatever I'm doing. And all you're going to get is inflation. You're not going to get everybody equal anyway. Nothing there. So he's telling you, you have to get an import from somewhere else. That's the only way that everybody can get. So Rome did it by running around capturing countries and splitting the booty among all the citizens of Rome. They didn't have to work. And what it says over here, what we got to do also was gedud, get into a raiding party and start raiding. But I think in the bracha of the Teichecha, in B'chukaisai, it says that you should move Yosha Noishan, you're going to eat Yosha Noishan. That means 3-year-old grain, which is seemingly better than even old grain. And Yoshem Ipnei Chodesh Teitziu. You're going to have to move your Yoshan because you got so much new stuff to bring in that you have to move out the old stuff. Where am I moving it to? Am I playing here, what do you call it, musical chairs? I'm going to move it over there and then fill this up here. So why don't you just move the new stuff into the new warehouses? Why do I have to move the old stuff into the new warehouses? No, so I think what it means is the certain amount that you're going to keep for Klal Yisrael to become the 3-year-old stuff that you keep. The rest of it you export. By exporting it, now you can have enough money for everybody because you're having new money coming in from other people, from other places, and that we can make money on.
Well, they weren't on the Madriga to do that at Davimel's time?
Huh?
They weren't on the Madriga to do that at Davimel's time?
By who? By Reuven? No, they made the gedud, so they did it. But they didn't do, or you mean about they'd have such thought? I guess not. He spoke Lashon Hara, remember? Time of Achav, maybe they did, because it says they were Matzliach. They owned the world. Yisachar basically is the bracha of the Brais in the 6th parak of Avos. Uncles don't learn like that, but like Rashi learns like that. This is the the bracha? What's the bracha? Kachi daki shel teire, pas mal teire, man so tishte, tishon imato isikin as rechbel mazev. So it says over here, what is Yisachar? Chamor Gorim. He's a chamor who's you're carrying a yoke on him, right? And he's running with it and everything else. And that's a young guy. He goes in as Mesa Nefesh. I'm going away to yeshiva. I'm giving up the luxuries of home. I'm going to put myself into a place with roommates that I don't know. I'm going to eat food that is not top quality. I'm going to sleep in a bed that's probably not so good. And I'm going to have a mashgiach on top of me to make sure I do everything right. That's a pretty tough job for a guy to do. But if he does it, it'll be matzliach. And this I've seen many times, that a young bacher coming in the 9th grade, is all when his mother calls him, and every day they call him, or he calls them, I hate it here, I don't like it, Ma, it's lonely, I miss your food, I miss this, whatever that story is. About a month into this man, I don't think it's longer, the kid all of a sudden says to the mother, I love it here. What do you love it here? You're just complaining about it every day about it. He finally got Teire. He finally got that it's not important, the other things. So what he's learned is, because he went into a Mesilas Nefesh situation, and he found out in the end it's not Mesilas Nefesh. Now we can learn Teire. So that's what the Chamor Gorim did. Chamor Gorim is testing it. Vayam menucha kitayv. He saw menucha, that's a land that he had that it's good, that's all Tinema. Doesn't say if it was or it wasn't, just as he saw that it was good, meaning he was satisfied with it. So what did he do? Vayichi he now made himself a slave forever. But this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. And that's what happened. He has that position that finding out this isn't difficult. I like doing this. And therefore, he's going to have me on the table for whatever it is. When it comes to Yaakov Avinu dies, he does the thing there, and what's his name? Yosef asked Rishus to go to Eretz Yisrael and Eretz Canaan and bury him, and a big army, a big horde of people leave Mitzrayim to go bury Yaakov Avinu. And it says, Rashi says, the kings of Canaan, and it says where they were maspid him in Goyrem Ha'atod, the field of thorns. He said, what does it mean, the field of thorns? It says when the Canaanim and the Ishmaelim saw that they were coming, that such an army is coming, such a large amount of people are coming from Mitzrayim, they thought it was an invasion. So what they did is that they got their forces together to repel the invasion, a simple thing. And then they came to this people, and he sees it's a funeral. And they see that Yosef's crown is hanging around the bier of Yaakov, so they all went and hung their crown on it there. So it came out, the crowns have points coming out of it, so it looks like a field of thorns around the, what do you call it? That's one explanation to it. What struck me as strange, why would they put their crowns around Yaakov's thing there? They don't even know who he is. And even if they do know who he is, obviously it doesn't impress him too much. I mean, that was 17 years ago. We got saved. We don't have to know about him now. And what did they know about Yaakov, period? It was Yosef that they did the thing here. So Yosef is his father. He wants to give him cover. He gives him cover. Why are we joining in? So I said once that the simple thing is because he tainted that I acted as a king for the betterment of the community, of the people. And this I learned from my father. Now you can say a king is to enjoy the cover and the power that he has, right? Divine right of kings. And by doing that, it's only for yourself. Or my purpose is to make it better for the people. Okay? And I learned that, and they all agreed that this is the definition of a king. A king's job is to make the good place, the security, a parnasa of the people. Okay, so that's what they agreed. I only had a kasha on that. It says that what happened when he saved the people, Yosef. In the second year, don't forget, originally it was supposed to be 7 years. In the second year, he already owns all of the Mitzrayim and all of the land. The first year, he owned all of the money and all the behemoths. If that's the case, what's the raya you did it for me? You did it for yourself. You did it for Paro. So this is a conjecture only, but I think it makes sense. He had all the money from time in Canaan, right? He doesn't need any more money. Money is wasteful and it has no purpose. So why does he need 20% of the tfuah from all the Mitzrayim? A tax, like, to show that you're owned by Pari. I believe that he used that for the infrastructure of Mitzrayim. In other words, he improved Mitzrayim through this 20%. He didn't need it anymore for Pari. Pari was the richest man already in the world as it was. So the only question was to use it for the betterment of the people. And that's what he did. And by doing that, for the betterment of the people, they saw great improvements in the people. You're right. You took him as avodim, you did that, but if you didn't do that, you wouldn't have had this ability to build the infrastructure that you have. And the truth is, they don't suffer being an Eved. What they do, they're on their own land, they have to keep their own land, all they do, they give you 20%. It's like a tax. Now don't call it among you, it's like a tax. So it's not bad. And therefore, he built up the country. That was the thing, that's why I think that he was the purpose of it. Anyway, this is Albena B'chai. They saw with the Rosh Shiur, they say, I myself never heard it from him, but I heard it from a few people. They came to Yosef when they came back from Mitzrayim, and they asked him that your father said to us to forgive us and to be, I guess the name Yosef said, what, Vayitzav, Yosef Lema, Vicha Tziva Lefanei Moshe Lema, should say to Yosef, forget about the sin of your father, of your brothers and so on. What the sin was, I don't know. Forget about it. He says he cries. It's the third time he cried. He cried the first time when he took away Shimon. He cried when he identified himself to his brothers, and he cried now. I want to claim that the reason he cried was not because of emotion, physical emotion, that he saw his brothers and stuff like that. He cried because what was his whole purpose of everything else? He wants to get his brothers, who he's not angry at, by the way, he wants to get them to apologize for what they did to him. So the first time I saw them talking about it was when they took away Shimon. So the brothers say, you know why we deserve this? Because we didn't have pity on our brother when he cried to us over there. Reuven answers them, I told you then that he didn't deserve Misa. Okay, we don't have that discussion actually in the Torah, but we have it here. That means that they feel that we were justified in doing what we did. The only thing is, we should have had pity on him, because we're fach brothers. In a Bezdin, you can't have pity. But if it's brothers that's doing it, you can have pity. So we should have had pity, and we didn't. He cries then. Why? You're so close. You see you did something wrong. You see you deserve some punishment for it. And you saw that, at least that you didn't have pity on me. And you don't see that you were wrong in selling me. So he cried so close and so far. So he keeps trying his thing of trying to get him to see more things go wrong in order that they should realize what's going on. So he tries, and then all of a sudden he sees Yehuda and the rest of the Shvatim are not getting, scared of what he's doing. They intend to fight and wipe out Mitzrayim. That means, again, they do not recognize that anything they did was wrong. Again, he cried. The third time, they agree that he's now in Yosef's hands, because whatever it is that the way they live and so on, they're actually in Yosef's hands. And he can actually punish them. And he told them that your father told us to take away the sin. So ask me for mechila. Ask me, I'm sorry. Didn't say that they were sorry. They said to him, don't be angry. So Rabbeinu B'chai learns over here that Yosef never forgave his brothers. What does that mean? And think about it. Two guys, and this is a story with the Rosh Hashanah. Two people had a fight or some disagreement, and at the end he wanted to make up, and I'm sorry, and one of them said to the other one, "It's okay, forget it." He says, "No, go say I'm moichel you." No, I said, no problem. It's we forget about it. I'm moichel you. And he didn't say it. He can't say it. It's very hard. Because I'm not moichel you. What do you mean? So now how can I live with you? I can forget about the past. I can pretend it didn't happen. But I don't forgive you for what happened. And that's the problem. We've had all of Machlekes and Klal Yisrael between Yosef and Yehuda was because it is pointed to Malchias and everything else, the countries. Because he was a Meichel. And it's very hard to think about it. The dinner mechila by alone is that, I'd say, for instance, I tell a guy, he asked me, I loaned you money, how much do I owe you? The guy says, it's okay. We'll settle some other time. It's okay. Doesn't mean I forgive you. That just meant I'm not collecting at the moment. Right? But what happened if he says, I forgive you the money? It's repaid. It's paid back. I don't owe you anything anymore. That's the difference. Same thing goes when you harm somebody. If you say I'm Michael, it means as if you didn't harm me. The harm went away. If I just say let's get along, you still harmed me. I'm just willing to get along with you. And that's the point. And therefore, he wasn't Michael Yosef, and that's a big kind time. And, I just was thinking also that he maybe misjudged now what the purpose of what this whole thing happened. In the beginning of Vayigash, when they find out, when he finds out, they find out he knows it's Yosef. So he says to them, don't be sorry that you sold me here. God sent me ahead of you to make a place for live. That you'll have a place for you to flourish in the land. In other words, you have to have a place to live. I was sent ahead of you to be able to do that. Now that all the dreams make sense, whatever it is there. And what do you call it? Over here, he says, you meant to do bad to me, but the Ben Shalom did good in order that I should make a nation live. Right? Now we know that, we think we know, that the reason Ben Shalom made the fast and the hunger years and so on was to get Yaakov to go down to Mitzrayim. And as soon as he went down, it was the end of the fast, the end of the hunger. So therefore, that was the purpose. So that was only for me to get there, and that's really the interpretation of the dream. And the dreams were that the bundles bow to my bundle, not you bow to me, but your bundles bow to my bundle. And that's the case. So therefore, it's food. There's nothing else to do with kingship or anything else. And that they missed the boat on that point. So if he would have remembered this dream before, it says though when they first remembered the dream when they came. But if he would have remembered the dream before, he would have been ready for Klal Yisrael when they came. And then he would have had yeshiva set up, nobody attending it, but you'd have the place already, the curriculum set up, everything else that would be set up, just the point of getting the students and the teachers in there. Okay, so now that should be an easy point when they didn't come down. And that's what he didn't do, and because of that, the chinuch in Mitzrayim was lesser, and therefore fifths at least didn't make it because they assimilated completely, or they didn't even want go. I think you don't even have to say that they assimilated. There's an old joke. Remember years ago when I was a kid. A joke like this, two survivors from the Holocaust, husband and wife, came with nothing. He opened up a little grocery store, and all of a sudden, they're millionaires. Real estate, everything else. Everything went well for them. And he comes home to the wife, and he says to the wife, I just heard a speech from the rabbi that the Mashiach is coming, and that we're all going to go to Eretz Yisrael. So the wife said, what's going to happen with all our businesses and stuff? Well, we're going to lose all our things. And maybe we're going to be poor again. So he said, don't worry, God saved us from Hitler, will save us also from the Mashiach. That's the joke. But the idea is, there are many people that are quite comfortable here. I don't want to go to Eretz Yisrael. I like my house here. I like it now. I assume just like the Beit Mati Medrashim are going to go, Maybe the houses also go. Maybe I'll get the same type of hill that I have, whatever it is. I can't answer you that. But Lamaisa, that I'm too comfortable here. And that the Rebbeinu Shem doesn't like either. It's not that you have to only assimilate, but you're not looking forward to Mashiach. You think, this is not bad here. And I'll tell you even why maybe we think that way. And, years ago we were called the Wandering Jew. That means we didn't have a place to live. We didn't have anything. We had to go from one country, got kicked out of one country, went to another country, back and forth. Right? Now, nobody wants to live in one place. I have a house in New York, right, in Brooklyn, in Lakewood. So I have a Shabbos house in Lakewood where my kids are. I have a house for the winter in Florida. I have one for the summer in the mountains. I have at least 4 houses just living here. And imagine the guy who is a richer guy who has a house in California also, and maybe in Switzerland, and maybe in South America. All of these things here. Why? Because I want to visit there. I don't want to live here. I want to be a couple of weeks here and then a couple of weeks over there. So everybody loves to be traveling, no one wants to be in one place. So what's the yichus of being the wandering Jew? I mean, there's no insult to being the wandering Jew. The thing there, we're wandering because we didn't have a place at all. That was the problem, the wandering Jew. But the fact that we wander because we don't have we're not settled, it's easy for us. A guy lives in New York, and then all of a sudden the neighborhood is changing. He goes to somewhere else. He moves. See, how many houses did he own in his lifetime? Started with a starter house, as you call it, and then all of a sudden he's got his mansion, and then he's building downwards. When all the houses out. Okay, fine. So did anybody feel in any house that this is my home? This is where I live. This is where I'm going to die. No one feels that way anymore. And that's a problem also. Anyway, we should have good das. Mashiach should be coming soon. We should all be healthy. Yirtzeh Hashem, the new things should not affect us. Yirtzeh Hashem, have a good Shabbos.